order. This is a notice to the public. The Board of Supervisors welcomes comment from the public during the time allowed for discussion. You are requested to approach the microphone, state your name for the record, and limit the time used to present your remarks in order that others may be given an opportunity to speak. The normal process on any agenda item is for the chairperson to read the item from the agenda. The board is given an opportunity to comment on the issue and/or place a motion on the floor. An opportunity for discussion may be presented, at which time the public may participate, and a roll call vote will follow. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Solosik.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Would everybody please in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our agenda this morning is the consent agenda. It's to approve the minutes of January 18th, 2022. Also approve the claims as audited and authorize the county auditor and recorder to issue payment of the same. The listings of claims paid at this meeting and all claims paid in the current month will be published as part of the first meeting of the following month. File sheriff's quarterly report dated October 20, 2021 through December 2021. Of general basic interest of $4.30 and general basic mileage fees of $2,543.52. And I didn't see that one. Also, the general basic service fees of $11,099.04. I'll entertain motions on the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the consent agenda as read.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion or comments or questions? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Solosik.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5 on our agenda this morning is the reappointment of condemnation compensation commissioners through 12/31 of 2022. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to reappoint the condemnation compensation commissioners through 12/31 of 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any comments or questions on this item? This is an annual appointment. It's one of the few commissions we have that has to be done annually. Most of all the rest of them take more than 1 year to complete their term. One of the true pleasures we have is we ask individuals to serve in a capacity of any of our commissions, we've never been told no. That speaks very highly for our area, and good government requires active participation. Any other comments?
And they're doing this free of charge.
For free.
Yes.
That's better than cheap. Okay. Any other comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Solosik.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Number 6 on our agenda this morning is the reappointment of the Green Mountain Street Lighting District trustees. Term expires 12/31/2022. This is to reappoint Renewal Nielsen and Jaylene Primus, whose terms will expire 12/31/2022. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to reappoint Lenil Nelson and Jaylene Primus for the Green Mountain Street Lighting District trustees position.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Solosik.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item 7 on our agenda this morning is to reappoint Todd Badful as the Marshall County Reed Commissioner, Sanitarian and Zoning Administrator. This term expires 12/31/2022. Entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to reappoint Todd Apple, Marshall County Weed Commissioner, Sanitarian and Zoning Administrator. The term that expires on 12/31/2022.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reappoint Todd. Any further comments or questions? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosik,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes,
Thompson,
Yes, motion carries. Item 8 on our agenda this morning is to approve the renewal of a Class C liquor license, LC 0040617 for the Jensen Golf Limited Liability Corporation, 1 year beginning on 2/1/2022. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve renewal of Class C liquor license LC 0040617 for the Jensen Golf LC, 1 year beginning in 2/1/22.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the renewal. Any comments or questions? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosik,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes,
Thompson,
Yes. Item 8 on our agenda this morning is to approve the secondary road purchase of 2 Volvo tandem axle chassis packages for $137,200 and $123,541 from Henderson Products Incorporated of Manchester, Iowa. Paul, you want to bring us up to speed on this, please?
Yes, this is for the equipment for our, for the chassis that we ordered. Well, we would have ordered them last what, December. They'll be here, they'll be delivered, we think August if the build dates hold. And so this equipment it'll be the, the dump body and all the plow, snow equipment, everything that we normally get, except we are reusing the sanders because we've been buying the stainless steel sanders and those can go more than one truck generation. So we'll be using sanders that we already have. The only other difference on this quote is that this will also have the conveyor that we use for putting rock shoulder down when we're putting rock shoulder on our pavements. And this will give us 3 of the conveyors. So 3 of our trucks, when we are doing our rock shouldering, what it does is it minimizes any wait time. If we are shouldering further distance away from the quarry, we don't have the tractor waiting on more material from the trucks. If we have, and 3 is probably where we're going to go, because if we go too many trucks, then we could have the possibility where the trucks are waiting to unload. So we think 3 of them is probably the ideal number for shouldering.
Okay, I've got a question. When we talk about December, because we're ordering these things so far out in advance because of supply chain issues, was this previous month, December in 21, or did we actually order these the year before that?
The previous month. They're
Okay.
the ones that we are taking delivery on, like right now, they were the ones that were ordered like a year ago.
Okay. It's getting hard to keep track sometimes. We're having to order this stuff so far in advance, which budget you're working on.
Right. And it's just the way things are going to be for a while with materials and we want to get on Henderson's, dance card as far as getting the things done. So we were asking for when they would commit to a price just because their materials are, so variable as well. And so this way, soon after the trucks arrive, we'll be able to get them up to Manchester and get them built well before next winter.
Any other questions on this item? Okay, I'll entertain motions on this, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion then to approve the secondary road purchases of 2 Volvo tandem axle packages, $137,732 and $123,541 from Henderson Products Incorporated of Manchester, Iowa.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further comments or questions? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosik,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes,
Thompson,
Yes. Item number 10 on our agenda this morning is to approve OPN Architects Incorporated contract amendments number 4 and number 5, discussion and possible action Lucas from Buildings and Grounds, would you bring us up to speed on this item, please?
Yeah, so these are split up a little differently. So let's start with amendment number 4. This is actually a two-part thing. Part 1 is $6,495. That is in addition to the overrun of time that we have spent on the annex building. That cost will actually be billed back to Henkel, so they'll be covering that costs. The other portion of it, the $27,600, is actually going to go on our damages list to Perfection for courthouse overrun. And so that's amendment number 4. Amendment number 5, the $96,600, is actually EMC's portion of the courthouse project. So it's all just kind of rolling together, and as long as things hold up like we think they're going to hold up, none of this will actually be a Marshall County expense.
Okay. We put possible action on this morning. I guess I'll entertain motions on this.
What's the amount of time it takes then for the people who are responsible for these figures? When does that money come in? How long are we?
We'll bill for the Henkel damages. We'll take that right out of their contract, as basically make them put a change order in the contract deducting the $66,495. The $27,600 is going to be probably the portion that's a little trickier. That's the portion that Marshall County could potentially be responsible for on finishing out the courthouse. But with the amount of time that Perfection made us lose on the project, we're going to try and bill that back to them.
Okay.
So all of this gets us through the end of the courthouse and the annex project.
So the money may show by the end of this fiscal year?
Depends how.
It depends how,
with
yeah.
Perfection and First on Site.
Okay, so we may end up paying for more than the 27,000.
The most we're gonna pay is the $39,095.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Correct. But there's no reason that Henkel won't pay that $6,495. So, yeah, I would say the most that we would pay would be the $27,600 actually.
And we currently have all of this covered in your Buildings and Grounds budget.
It's not in the, it's in the capital. It's in the
Capital budget, okay.
And
Yep.
these numbers are in that.
Yeah, they were included
Alright.
in our budget numbers, so.
Did we do that with an amendment, or we just, it was there, period?
It was there. We put it there. It's been there for quite a while, because we've
Okay.
known about this for a week or two.
Mr. Chairman, then to move this thing along, then I would approve the OPN Architects Incorporated contract amendments 4, 5 in discussion that we just had, and approve that these be paid.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the contract amendments number 4 and 5. Any further discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Carries. Number 11 on our agenda this morning is generally our least favorite thing to do during the entire year, is to adopt the resolution 2022-0011 County Compensation Board schedule for elected officials. Dan, you were at these meetings. You want to start this off with what their proposal are and
Yes, there was lots of good discussion amongst the comp board members. It is a group of people that most of them have done this for a long time, like 20+ years. And they do spend time researching, looking into things for their particular representative. Jordan has a newer representative, Mark Eaton, who, spent a great deal of time.
I think Mark is actually Joel.
Oh, that's Joel's, you're
Yeah.
right. And
Tom
you
doesn't-
have
Yeah.
Tom McCoy. So Tom, he's been around forever. I'm sure he's listening and he's going to take that as offensive, but I've been around forever too, so just not at the county. But they really spent a lot of time, and they went through a lot of gyrations and how they ended up. One of the statistics they were asking about was really the cost of how things are going up, and we found a quote of 5.9% increase for Social Security is what's going to be enacted. And so that's my gut feel is why they ended up at 6%. Is when they heard that number. 6.8, I think, was the inflation rate. So they ended up kind of at 6% for all.
Check. We've got somebody calling in. We've got Brad, Kim, Mark Eaton, Michael Tupper, Paul, Rob Mahat, Harry, and Jeff.
Do we have any members of the comp board that are joining us by Zoom this morning that would like to make any comments?
This is Mark Eaton. I'm the representative for the sheriff. So one of the tough things this year was the state legislature changed the rules and said that the compensation board must recommend the amount needed to get the sheriff's office in line with other law professionals. And to do that currently would require a $32,000 increase for the sheriff to make him equal to the chief of police. And knowing this is almost impossible to do, because then this recommendation has to go to the county supervisors, and the county supervisors have to do their job. And that could mean that none of the other members would get a raise. So this makes this job very tough to do for the sheriff's office. It also makes it tough. Well, I'll leave that for another comment for another day, but it is tough to do, and it is a tough position to be in, just so everyone knows. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your time. We know every single one of you did a lot of research on this, and I did watch the meeting via Zoom. There was a lot of good discussion. Appreciate that, and thank you for your service. On a secondary note, the things that the legislature did last year were done at the last minute in appropriations, and I've been informed that they are going to go back this year and change those back. So that situation will not be in the comp board recommendations for next year coming down from the state. I think they realized that they kind of violated the theory of home rule when they did it, and are going to fix their error and the burden they put on both the comp board and the elected officials in this particular matter.
Dave, I will share that this was not passed 100%. What is presented before you, there were 2 opposed.
Yep, I did notice that. But the majority of the comp board did vote this. Okay. Any further discussion before I take motions and recommendations from the floor on this?
Are you gonna take discussion after the motions?
I'd like to hear the discussion before the motions, because the motion may go back and forth more than one time.
I'll go ahead and throw some numbers out there for you guys. Some of this information that I've got is common knowledge, some of the folks sitting around this table, but some of those out there in the public and join us that aren't as familiar with the process, they may not know this. Mark was put in a tough spot with the compensation board. People may not realize in the sheriff's office, the chief deputy and chief jailer, as our roles in administration were salary positions, the chief deputy by code is limited to 85% of the sheriff's salary. We have different roles below that with the chief jailer, sergeant, detective, and patrol deputy. So what's that mean by the numbers? The difference in pay between those positions, not calculating overtime. If a sergeant or detective works 92 hours of overtime, they essentially have the same take-home pay as that chief jailer. Senior patrol deputy, when we say senior, we're talking 8 years on the department. They have to work about 215 hours of overtime to equal that same pay. The lowest deputy overtime worked in 2021 was 106 hours. That's not including the holidays. The average deputy overtime worked per deputy, the average was 192 this past year. So salary staff typically achieves your working hours, salary hours by November, if not, no sooner than no later than November, December. So essentially most salary staff are essentially donating that last month's worth of time to the position. So if you look at that, that's essentially, for rough calculations, about 200 hours minimum that a salary position is going to donate to the cause. So what that typically means is staff, the deputy with their typical average overtime essentially makes the same take-home money as admin staff does with the same comparable amount of time. Deputies are getting 200 hours of compensated overtime, where admin staff's donating that 200 hours of time. So what we end up with is a wage compression issue between admin staff and deputies that trickles all the way down to, we've talked about this in years past, it ultimately trickles all the way down to starting wages for deputies, which directly affects our recruitment and retention. Those salary admin positions you're putting in those extra hours. They also entail after hours phone calls, call outs, additional responsibilities, increased liability, and essentially for less pay. That is what it boils down to. We don't do these roles for pay, obviously. I mean, by the spreadsheet doesn't make sense. We do it for the right reason, to serve our public and do what we need to do, and for the agency and the public we work for. But it creates a lack of incentive for people to step up and fill these roles. And that's what gets to be concerning, is that we see that gap to where it's really, just by the numbers, you're better off to have less responsibility and just go in and do your shift and have less responsibility, less headaches, and make more money. So why would anybody ever transition up to leadership roles, which directly affect day-to-day operations and effectiveness of our agency? I'll let Chief White kind of throw out the numbers for the jail staff real quick here.
Yeah, so on the jail side, of course, I have 2 lieutenants that are salary that are just below me that oversee the day-to-day operations, and they're on call 24/7. So just last fiscal year, there was 10 jail staff that made the same or more than those lieutenants. And so that's where we're seeing the crunches. I don't have any incentive for anybody to want to move up to those positions, because again, like Chief Wren said, is they can do their job and make more money and not have they have less responsibility and less liability on that. And that's, I recently lost an employee to secondary roads for $7 more an hour to start. I can't compete with that. I just can't. And I've got smaller agencies that I have staff going to making $4 an hour or more to start. I can't compete with that either. I don't have, and obviously with law enforcement, it's tough recruiting anyway. When I started almost 23 years ago, I think I applied with 80 applicants. I'm lucky if I get a dozen a year now that apply, and that doesn't mean they're good applicants, so that's kind of on our end where and it's just getting worse. So.
And our point today is not arguing against other elected officials or other positions. Our specialty is our agency, what we have. They may have similar issues in other departments or elected officials. But one thing that's rather unique is the sheriff's office is tied by code, that 85% chief deputy, which does kind of create that glass ceiling essentially that we're up against. What it boils down to is I really hope, that the board's going to consider the 6% across the board for all elected officials, if that's the best offer on the table. Just based off, I think Nan already mentioned the Social Security COLA adjustment is 5.9%. With inflation the way it is, that number's, unless there's some significant change, will increase. Probably more likely to 10% is what the rumors are for the next adjustment, but we're not there yet. So I think that 6% is definitely important. Kind of a history of how things have gone. I look back last, it was 10 years I had last year's in. When this comes up every year, Over the past 11 years, there's been reductions in 10 out of those 11 years to the recommendations from the comp board. Only 1 year in 2018 was recommendation followed. And so I think it's really important that at minimum, we stay with that 6% just to try and keep things on track, try and keep things moving forward. If I did my math correctly on that, if we do the 6%, if the board does the 6% for all those elected officials across all those positions, my math, it comes up to $20,201 this year, in 1 year. I understand that obviously multiplies out, into years future, but $20,000 is a pretty small figure in the scope of budgeting of projects. We talked about all the capital improvements that are made. 20,000 is a really small piece of the puzzle. $20,000 in the courthouse project is nothing. It's not even a ripple on the pond as far as what you're getting. It probably doesn't cover carpet or tile, and something like that in infrastructure. So to me, that $20,000 investment by doing the 6% recommendation, it's an investment in recruitment and retention of quality staff. Just like the public likes our nice facilities and nice courthouse, nice county facilities, it's also important too, we have the professional quality people there the public actually work with on a day-to-day to conduct their business. And whether that's the treasurer's office or whether that's a deputy on the roadside on a call for service or someone taking care of someone in the jail. I think we have to act now to work on creating that separation between administration and deputy pay. Recruitment's already is difficult now for us as it ever has been. And unless we start trending that direction, we're going to be missing out on opportunities for quality staffing down the road. And also we're going to have issues with retention as well, I'm afraid. So we want to work to alleviate that wage compression that directly affects the deputy and jailer wages, as well as long-term solutions to fairly compensate the leadership roles that are essential to the day-to-day effectiveness of the agency and public reserve. So that's in summary. I really hope the board will consider the full 6% as recommended.
I have spoke to our legislators about this till I'm blue in the face for a number of years, as has the Sheriff's Association. I don't know if it's going to be one of these things where we literally hop in the truck and make a road trip, and the sheriff and you two and I go down and meet with both Senate and House leadership so that they hear both sides of the story, not only from law enforcement, but from the supervisors, and get this through to them, because it is an inequity. I'm hoping that we're going to see some change with the legislature on this session in relationship to the comp board. I'm pretty much guaranteed it's going to happen. I'm just not so sure how much, but this would probably be our best year to go down as a force from both sides of the equation and have that discussion with Senate and House leadership and plead our case, because this has been a long-standing problem on both sides of the equation, not only for, what happens out to you guys' department, but what happens on our end of the equation also.
You would like to see the sheriff and Ben's salaries decoupled? Is that?
Exactly. If I could have it exactly the way I would like it, it would be for the supervisors and local officials, elected officials, to get together and cumulatively set the wages of all elected officials. Ultimately, we are accountable in the ballot box. So that leaves that accountability. And if we could remove not only that from happening, but decouple the percentage of the salary between the sheriff and his chief deputies, it would allow everybody to work together at budget time and set commensurate salaries, rather than having the state legislature in our hair. The state is great at legislating things and then putting the burden on the counties. We're the ones that have to take the heat for it anyway. If I'm going to take the heat for making these decisions, I want to be able to actually make them. Just my thoughts.
Ben, what was the 6% dollar number you throughout.
28,198.66.
That's the number you have.
Yeah. good
That would be,
calculating.
that would be 6%. Now, we've got several options available to us as supervisors when we vote on this. We can take the recommendations in their entirety. We can throw them out. We can reduce all recommendations by a like amount. Or as supervisors, we can segregate what we take and approve the other elected officials at a different rate than what we take. Did I hit those choices?
Mhm.
Okay,
If you lower other electeds to 4, you guys can't take 5.
correct.
You
Now, we
can't
can
take
take
higher.
less.
It's got to be equal or less.
Last year, we voted to take less than the rest of the elected officials. And I'm just gonna throw out the options of what our options are, and I'd like to hear discussion on the table this morning.
I feel that we're short on our professional people that are in our county here. We should be playing catch up anyway. I guess if I could make a proposal, I want to try to come up with something that will be acceptable to you other two supervisors too. I'd like to see 5% for all of our people, and the supervisors take 3.
Okay? Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
I would put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, to move this thing along here, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to reduce the salaries for all elected officials from 6 to 5%, with the exception of the Board of Supervisors, and that reduction would be from 6 to 3%. Discussion?
If I can comment.
Please.
The inflation rate, which Nan is quoting 6.8, does not include inflation on fuel and food. That's taken out of the core inflation rate by the feds. And so the real inflation rate is closer to 9.7%, according to all the stuff I watch and read. And so 6%, in my opinion, should be the bare minimum, because that's not even inflation rate without food and gas. So I'm gonna push you guys to go and just leave the recommendation as proposed by the Compensation Commission. If you want to lower your own, that's fine, but we've got a disparity that we need to take care of.
Okay.
I'd like to see the supervisors actually take the full amount as well, honestly. I think it's something that's been, for lack of a better term, neglected over the years. And, we are coming up to an election cycle, and not saying that you guys don't do a great job, but if we could entice more people to run for office in those positions, I think that's a way to do that. And honestly, I think the supervisors get shorted a lot of times in this, whether it's, your own personal feelings aside to, lighten the load at some point, but that's my opinion.
We've always had the theory and the thought process of staying with what we've done for increases in salaries for our general line staff throughout the county, which this year we put it in 3%. We do have, for the non-contract individuals.
If I can maybe chime in here now, I'm kind of in a very different scope. And I've worked for 4 different states and 4 different agencies. And the one thing that I can tell you is this is not a unique position just to Marshall County. So this is a, overall broad, scope that goes everywhere. But, talking in what Ben was saying, it very much goes in line with the fact that you've got what's listed here, very, very unique and specialized positions that not everybody can fit into the role. So you have very, very specialized people, and being able to, it's not all about the money. You do it because, it's for the being able to help others. But there is also something to be said about, people wanting to go into those roles because there is liability. There is those extra duties. I can't, Bill has heard this because of how many hours I work. I report to him how many hours I work. I get paid 40 hours a week. Last year I put in over, I think it was like almost 300 additional hours. On top of what I already did. Or maybe it was a huge amount. On an average, yesterday I worked a 16-hour day. I don't get compensated for that. So there is a disparity there. The 6% based on what, the country is moving to and the growth and the cost, it's not that much when you're looking at a span of 1%. I would respectfully request that it stays at the 6% as well.
And to kind of go a little bit further on this, with one thing too, my major concern is, and Chief White, is our compression issue, which, what Dave talked about, the legislation, that's really fine and well if that all works out. If something like that works out in the future, that's fantastic. However, we have to work towards that now and incrementally as time goes on. So say we did a 5% today for the elected officials, those deputies and jailers under union contract, we're looking at a 3%. And now we're kind of running out of the end of this existing contract, but that contract's open now again, is my understanding. So if they are able to work out a 4 or 5% increase in extending that contract, now we're looking at a 1% or 2% difference. We're doing nothing to widen that gap, essentially, is what my concern is. And, we can chip away at this a little bit at a time. Even at 6%, we're not going to chip away at it, very quickly at all. However, you drop down to 5, and you start talking percentage, a 1% or 2% more than the folks underneath are getting that raise. We're not getting anywhere. We're not getting any ground. And every year that goes by, we had a similar discussion. I look back, I think it was in 2019, we had a similar discussion about, legislature and those things. And if those things change, that's fantastic. However, I think we need to work with the idea of creating a solution here on our own. And if something like that falls in place, we always have the option to adapt down the road. But I think right now we need to take action to get this ball rolling, start working that direction, because if we keep waiting, all that's happening is that gap keeps narrowing further and further, and we keep losing potential people or not recruiting those people while we're waiting to try and find a better long-term solution. So.
Well, and kind of on top of that, I will tell you, and I've said this more than once, maybe not in this setting, but I've said it to individual people. Moving from the areas that I moved to, I will be honest with you, for the population that we have in Marshall County, I was shocked at the activity because I did not expect as high of an activity here. In some cases, it's almost equivalent to those areas that I've lived that have populations of 90 to 120,000 people. So, with the amount of duties versus, like, say, another county, there is a lot more that goes on in Marshall County as compared to those other counties that are even surrounding us. So, I think that we also have to look at, the here and now of the county that we're in and the duties and responsibilities of such.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. I'll go back to what it was to go with 5% for all elected officials with the exception of the Board of Supervisors, reducing that from 6 to 5 and to reduce the supervisors from 6 to 3. A motion and a second.
I realize that one of the most important things that we have to do is look at salaries for our people. But we've got a big need of money for the whole county and all the various aspects. And we're trying to put this thing together so that it works. And so we're not trying to pick on anybody. The whole aspect has to fit together like a real nice puzzle. And it's hard to get those pieces to go in sometimes. And that's what our job is put this puzzle together. I don't know, Dave, do you have any other comments?
Only comment I have is back to you, gentlemen. If I get a call from the legislature and they would like us to come down and either voice our opinion by Zoom or in a Senate or House subcommittee or a joint committee, I would invite the sheriff and also you two, with his permission, to join us and go plead our case. I think we've got an excellent opportunity this year to finally get this taken care of in the legislature. So that's a standing invitation, gentlemen. I might even be known to spring for lunch. Okay, unless we have anything else, let's run a roll call vote on this, if you would, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to item number 12 on our agenda this morning is to set the public hearing for the proposed property tax levy of Marshall County. This will set March 1st, 2022 at 9:05 a.m. in the Marshall County Election Center at 107 South First Avenue, Marshalltown, as the time and place to conduct the Marshall County property tax levy public hearing and authorize the Marshall County auditor and recorder to publish notice of the public hearing. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to set the public hearing for proposed property tax levy for Marshall County to be March 1st, 2022 at 9:05 in the Marshall County Election Center.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to set the public hearing date and time and place. Any further discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes. Item 13 on our agenda this morning is to set the public hearing on proposed 2021-2022 Marshall County decrease in appropriations. This will also set March 1st, 2022 at 9:05 a.m. in the Marshall County Election Center at 107 South First Avenue, Marshalltown, Iowa, as the time and place to conduct the proposed 2021-2022 Marshall County decrease in appropriations public hearing and authorize the Marshall County auditor and recorder to public notice of the hearing. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to set the public hearing on proposed 2021-2022 Marshall County decrease in appropriations for March 1st, 2022 at 9:05 a.m. at Marshall County Election Center, 107 South First Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comment? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes, motion carries. Well, gentlemen, you've sat through an entire scintillating meeting so far today. Item 14 on our agenda this morning is we have an update on economic development and tourism. This morning, we have John Hall from the Chamber of Commerce, and we also have Andrew Potter from the Chamber of Commerce. John's going to hit us on economic development, and Andrew will update us on tourism.
Well,
Gentlemen,
yeah,
the
good
floor
morning,
is yours.
Supervisors. Appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you again this morning. Just wanted to circle back on a conversation that we kind of had initially. I think I was maybe 30 or 45 days on at that point, came to you all with an initial conversation. And my next step was to draft this letter that I provided to you. And I apologize that it took so long, but I wanted to ensure that I got our office up to staff back up, so that I could ensure that we had the resources in line in order to execute on a program of work that I presented to you. So we have now hired a workforce development coordinator. I spent a lot of time with the TPI closure and some of those workforce issues that now we have been able to shift off to another person in our office. So I provided a letter to Chair Thompson to kind of highlight, I think what we captured in those conversations, but wanted to come back for final discussion on that or some additional discussion, just to ensure that we're not missing the mark on the expectations of the dollars that you guys contribute to our organization. Obviously with an expectation on us taking further action. So most of the pieces that were captured in that letter are things that are already happening. The bulk of those things are things that I just wanted to ensure that we captured there so that you understand the scope of the services that you guys are in effect paying for. But the new additions to it would be really the twice annual, really specific outreach to each community. And it's not designed to just pop in and say, hey, how are things going? But it's trying to understand what are our smaller, more rural communities doing or thinking about in terms of their growth opportunities, and what resources and tools can we be connecting them to and helping to move things along. For a lot of our communities, they're probably not even aware of some of the resources that the state has or the different organizations have. And so we can help to be a conduit, connect those things, and then try and carry that forward for pursuing whatever growth makes sense for those communities. And in some cases, it may be shoring up existing downtown buildings or trying to do a new housing subdivision. It's gonna span the gambit, but just trying to be of service to those communities. And then the second piece is really on the tourism side. We do a fair amount of promotion of different tourism activities that occur throughout the county, but really trying to take a deliberative step to market a lot of the resources that the county has throughout the county in a really measured way, broadcasting that external to the county and having a measured response to that and providing that to you guys on a regular basis. So those are kind of the two additional pieces. Wanted to solicit feedback from you all. I've got Andrew here to talk a little bit about any of the tourism pieces that you might have questions on, but I'd welcome a response and discussion.
You mentioned something in regard to sharing money throughout the county. Did I misinterpret what you said? To help these small towns perhaps with their buildings? I would assume that would include helping them building houses. Now, this last program that we're participating in a limited way, basically because we were told at that time in no unspecific terms that we were having to have this program for Marshalltown and Marshalltown only until it gets to rolling. And that cut everybody out. You're telling us here right now that you're wanting to pull us in and do the whole county and these other towns too. And I haven't seen that. And so I'm just asking you maybe to fill us in on how that's going to happen.
So the Marshalltown, the Make Marshalltown Home program, which I think is what you're referring to, the grant for new home construction and new home purchase.
Specifically, yes.
Yeah, so that is at this stage only targeted to Marshalltown. And so certainly there can be additional conversations about expanding that. We set out with a goal of raising $1 million for that. We're at just over 800,000. So there's still a gap in that effort to address anyways. And so we haven't expanded it at this point, but I would also say that we don't fully understand what the smaller rural communities' expectations for growth are. It may be that some of them have available abandoned homes or existing housing stock that makes sense to remodel or refurbish, and setting up an individualized program for assisting them with that or assisting them with infills. What I don't want to do is take a blanket approach and say, yep, we're going to expand the program, and that's economic development for the county, so we're all good and we've done our part, so keep writing us a check. What I want to do is make sure that we are going into the communities and understanding their individual needs and then trying to address those where they're at. We don't Other than just a couple of programs at this stage, we don't have a lot of resources to give to the communities to inject into projects. But what we've got is the training and the time and connection to resources to help broaden what they think might be possible by connecting them into additional resources and tools and services. But in some instances, it might be coming back to the county and asking, for $20,000 to save a building. I don't know what the asks are going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like, but the idea is that hopefully that will spur additional economic growth. I wouldn't expect that we would come back without then a plan of what's going to go into that building and what's that look like and what's that really mean for the town. And it may be that, the state's got a program that we can take advantage of, a derelict building program or a challenge grant program where we can start to turn the tide on these rural communities. I mean, I think the census was a pretty stark reminder that our smaller communities are struggling to stay afloat. And so we have to do everything we can to try and address where their problems are at. Knowing that we can't do a blanket approach, we can't try and tackle everything, but let's go in and find individualized opportunities to really have meaningful impact in our rural communities.
How many applications have we had for the housing program so far?
To date, we've not had any. None so far. Now, we've not had housing really going up at this stage. And so there's only been one that's been eligible, and I think we're past the mark on that. There are a couple of spec homes that have been going up in some newer subdivisions, and then there's a whole slew of houses under construction right now, the JBS project that I think everybody's fairly familiar with here in town. Those homes would qualify as well. So I expect that we'll start to see more of this rolling here pretty soon. We have launched marketing on that as of today, actually. February 1st is when it was starting. Part of it, we rolled the program out. Then we had a turnover in leadership. And so the program launched in June. I started in August, just trying to get everything up to speed, and the fall and winter is a bad time to start building a new house. But we're going to be at that point now where we're going to be marketing it and marketing it in a targeted way. So if somebody Zillow searches for homes in the region, so they may look at homes in Newton, we may chase them around with it, or we intend to chase them around on the internet with our program to let them know and make them aware in hopes that they then choose to build here.
Just keep in mind and be respectful that we are responsible to all the communities within the county, not just Marshalltown. So we definitely would like to see this program reach out past just here. When we did commit to the funding, we did have considerable phone calls from a couple of our neighboring communities expressing concern that they weren't included in it, but it was yet their support of tax dollars to Marshall County that was supporting this. And there was some consternation. So just be aware of that in the future, that we'd like to see reach out past Marshalltown.
Absolutely. And I think the 50,000 that you guys provide to our organization annually, I think the list of services that I've laid out, is a strong return on investment for that investment. And certainly, I understand the want to expand this program beyond. And like I said, I think we're willing to take a look at that. I'd love to know how many phone calls you received from what communities, so that I can, as I'm working on the outreach, look to head that off and address that in a meaningful way.
Mostly from State Center and LeGrand.
Okay. Beyond that, I understand that you do serve all of Marshall County, and that's what we aim to serve with our economic development and tourism. That being said, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be programs that are largely funded by the city here that then focus primarily on Marshalltown. And certainly even our tourism efforts are funded by hotel motel tax that comes through the city of Marshalltown. So, that is half the population of Marshall County. So certainly I don't think you're doing a disservice to the county by funding efforts in Marshalltown, but my hope is that we can find some targeted opportunities within our more rural communities to ensure that we are helping them to grow as well.
Okay.
Can I just give a quick update since I'm here?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, we definitely have a good working relationship with county conservation. Over the past year, we've done a video with an aerial video over Grimes Farm, and then we also did a video at Sand Lake a few months ago. Actually, I'm going out to see Emily Herring in a few minutes here at Green Castle. We're going to do a video about ice fishing. So we have a good working relationship with County Conservation to promote their events, promote their signups, promote the parks. So we'll continue that relationship. And as the letter states, monthly videos as we move forward here on maybe Timmins Grove and some other places in the county that we love to help promote. So, yeah.
Well, we've got some exciting things that are going to be happening in the conservation and our quality of life initiatives through the county. We authorized spending of ARPA dollars for substantial increases at the camping facilities down at Greencastle. Hopefully that construction will be completed by the fall of this year. So that's going to be a huge increase in the amount of camping and the quality of it there. We also increased the camping facilities at Timmins Grove, so you might want to check with them. And we're also looking at acquiring more property around Sand Lake so that when that property does become available, that's literally, if you have never driven past it during the fishing season, whether it's ice fishing or standard, the amount of people that use that facility, because it's right smack dab next to Marshalltown, Iowa, is absolutely unreal. Down the road, you'll probably see Sand Lake not only be fishing, but camping. We've got some other things coming on, so please keep in touch with Mike Stegman and the group, Emily and the group out to County Conservation, because we've got some really neat things happening between that and Grimes Farm. I mean, we've got 21 quality of life issues throughout the county, whether it is our existing bike path from the Grimes Farm to Melbourne, or our walking paths, or just any of our facilities. You know, we've got tremendous quality of life issues throughout the county and within Marshalltown. And yep.
Yeah, Mike's in
Keep
contact with
hitting
me
those
regularly and helping with letters of reference and also with grant opportunities. So much.
Yeah, so I think we approved a grant for the
Yeah.
Sand Lake
Yeah.
expansion. So yeah, we've got skin in the game on that one too. So we like to see those projects.
When that comes together, Sand Lake, we will have 3 gyms in our system when that comes together. It'll definitely be Grimes Farm, Greencastle, and Sand Lake will be our three gyms in our system.
Absolutely. Well, and what I'd say is keep us in mind too. So we have the tourism grant side of things, and the piece that we love to fund more than anything is the capital improvement projects that create, you know, it's great to fund events and activities that are drawing tourism in, but funding the capital projects allows us to continually draw those tourisms in instead of that one time. So,
And I know Mike
continue to
has stayed with you on that.
Oh, yeah, he's on top of it.
You know, sometimes it's as simple as upgrading the shower house and the restroom facilities to be able to double or triple the amount of camping that is used. We've also are going to be looking at making the commitment from us that any of the fees that come in from these campsites be segregated out and stay within the conservation area to be able to further that, because as we have increased usage of the facilities, we're possibly going to need additional staffing. And we'd like to basically treat it like a business where those user fees offset the increase in the staffing. So, you know, the people that are actually using the conservation areas and the quality of life areas are actually paying, they have a little skin in the game too. So we've got some neat things going on, and hopefully carry our banner too.
Yeah,
We'll continue.
So this is Mark Eaton. I don't want to step on the good that you all just talked about, but I want to talk about how the chamber, whether they support the TIF initiatives in the city that reach into the county and take money out of the county budgets. For all you people that just discussed your wages increases, every TIF area that gets created in Marshalltown, that takes money out of the county's budget. And that's Marshalltown City Council and taking that money. And I want to know how the chamber feels about supporting TIF and TIF with no sunset dates.
I mean, it's your guys' table, so I don't want to.
Go ahead and field the question. I
Yeah,
think
I
he
mean,
directed it towards you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Mark, I'd be happy to connect further offline, but generally speaking, TIF is a incredibly useful tool that many communities and counties use wisely in order to affect change. The conversation always is a but for discussion, but for this tool or resource, would this project be happening? I know that the city's working on approving a new TIF district that I assume you guys will. If you haven't already been, we'll have the consultation on. And it's to in part facilitate a project that otherwise would not be happening in that location, in that manner, with the caliber of investment that they're looking at. And so certainly it's always a balancing act, but it's about trying to see positive growth and positive economic development. I know that the county has traditionally been opposed to the use of debt and debt service. I would say that debt and debt service is carved out of TIF. And so that's often a way to see an increase in tax dollars coming into the county or the school system. So whenever we have a TIF project, the schools do see an increase in taxes coming into the school system for their carve out of debt. And so a lot of times when we see positive economic growth, many of the school projects, the school capital projects, are ended up being paid for by this economic development, this economic churn. We can have a lot of conversations on perpetuity of TIFs and what that impact it is and has. I'd say that at this stage, the chamber is in part funded through the city through their one of their TIF districts. So I've got an obligation to stand in support of our TIF districts. If TIF changes, if things change, we'd always examine it and find a way to move forward, because at the end of the day, we're not going to be, as long as we're in a level playing field with the surrounding communities throughout the state of Iowa, then we're going to find a way to move things forward. But to limit ourselves on the use of a tool and resource that we've got in our pocket that makes us competitive across the market. I mean, we'd be foolish to back off use of it if it's what it takes to get a project done.
It's interesting that TIF was started in California. Now it's banned in California. So I think there's times, oftentimes TIF is overused, improperly used. And I think that's how California finally decided we're going to settle this. And as far as I know, in my reading, they have banned the TIFs in the state of California. I think that's something to look at and be careful. I think we're at the edge of that right now. We need to be very careful of the TIF usage here in Marshall County. You're there.
Yeah, I mean,
you're the guy who's going to tell us this message. So
no, that's fair. So in my use or in my history of use with TIF, I think we're in a fair position with our management and use of TIF. And I think as a state, we're in a fair position. California is a very different scenario, and when you've got nearby communities that are utilizing TIF to compete for the same project, then it becomes a race to the bottom. And I think that's what, that's the case that we saw in Coralville with Von Maur moving from Iowa City to Coralville with a large TIF incentive. And so we saw TIF legislation that worked to address that. And so, it's all about management of it, but doing it in a wise and responsible way. The reality is we are a state that is not growing at the same clip as surrounding community or surrounding states around us. And so, there's a philosophical approach about how aggressive do we get when it comes to business recruitment into our state in order to try and facilitate then population growth that matches that. And so that's the philosophical debate. The legislature is considering doing some pretty aggressive tax legislation to try and draw more people. And there is one about corporate taxes too that would lower that to make us a more competitive state. So, there's all these balancing acts and all these pieces that come together to say, how aggressive do we need to be? There's studies out there that say you don't really have to do anything. Businesses are going to choose where they're going to choose. But the reality is we're in a position where there's an expectation and obligation, if we want to be competitive for projects, that we have to participate and we have to compete. If that goes away across the state, we don't have to do that anymore, but it's not there. And so this is the reality of where we're at. So we have to be aggressive when it comes to our growth plans. But that being said, I always take a but-for approach, and I always work to find where there's shortfall and where the opportunities are at. So just to do a TIF and give a bunch of cash to a company or something like that, I tend to not be as big a fan of. But the utilization of TIF to accomplish public infrastructure that has multiple services and multiple uses while leveraging private facility to do that, that helps us to continue to springboard growth. I'm all in on figuring out how we can use those dollars to push for additional private sector growth along the path.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the legislature does this session.
Always is.
Yes, it is. It's a moving target. The silly season. Okay, anything else, gentlemen, or any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate your projects. You certainly don't need to stick around for the rest of the meeting if you've got stuff to do. Go ahead and head out.
We are going to take this opportunity to duck out.
You betcha. Bye-bye. Item number 15 on our agenda this morning. This is discussion and possible action. The Siren project.
Good morning.
There we are. Kim, welcome.
Hi, good morning. I don't think we'll need any action today, but I just wanted to kind of bring an update. We have a Siren committee meeting at 1 o'clock today, and then also an ARPA meeting. So we'll be reviewing the decisions at the last Board of Supervisors meeting at those two meetings this afternoon so that we can have some more discussion. I did have a discussion with the state of Iowa on the hazard mitigation grant. We have State Center, LeGrand, Melbourne, Ferguson, and Haverhill putting in so far for other communities with their own notice of interest, NOI, for the same grant and same type of project. The state has sent information to those cities and also back to me stating that a lot of times they see the projects go through quicker and show of better interest from FEMA if we do that as a group. So that's something we'll discuss as the Siren committee, and then we'll bring that back to you at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. But basically it would be submitted as one grant, but every entity, each jurisdiction would be responsible for their own funding, and so that would be kept separate on our side. But on the FEMA side, it would look as one application as a county-wide Siren project. So that is a possibility. I just wanted to bring that up to you. And I am also talking to the state about, since that we already have a $360,000 want or ask on our side for the NOI, does that help the project or does that hinder it for those other cities trying to do it individually? Since that is such a big project, would they go for funding smaller projects, and is that going to knock those smaller projects out of it? So I'm looking at both sides of that. We'll talk about that a little bit more this afternoon at our two meetings. Any questions?
Oh, just look forward to the update because we did make the commitment to cover from the county's portion for the approximately $54,000 for our match for the grant, and that's keeping in our thoughts about increasing public safety along with our increase in radio towers. It's kind of been a theme. Might not have gone as fast as everybody wanted, but we're getting there. So
same with the Siren project. It's a slow process. You have to take each step. You have to do your studies. You have to do your.
I know these things are bitterly slow and sometimes that's hard to take, but that's just the way it is. Any other questions or comments? I know, Steve, you've been working on
I
this.
have been, and like she says, we have a meeting here at 1 o'clock. and,
Okay.
ARPA.
Don't forget, we also have a 12 o'clock meeting for assessor today.
Oh, no way.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the Siren project? Okay, let's move along to item 16. We left this on here in case we needed to have any short-term budget discussion today. And you got anything you want to bring up here or?
I know we were, the budget's not perfect. We weren't there yet at our last budget meeting, which was on the 25th, where we kind of pulled everything together. And Maria had sent some information out kind of with some examples of things. They weren't beautiful. Our budget's not perfect. One of the issues, I believe maybe it's every 11 years, we have a 27 payrolls. Lucky us, it's in FY '23. So that makes about another 135-ish thousand, roughly ballpark. And so that's one thing. Just because we've got more public on here as well. The other piece of it is that our change in valuation provided us with under $100,000 of additional revenue. So just between those two sentences, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. If we keep everything else exactly the same, we're still slightly short. Talked about increases, there are increases, so we kind of need some more direction from you all. You've kind of tossed around some different ideas, but I didn't know if we were ready to go have that discussion today, if you want to brainstorm and think some more and you want to schedule a special.
I think we need to brainstorm and have a special on it.
One special option, which always I'm just going to pose, is next Tuesday, because it seems like we tend to keep our Tuesday mornings at 9 kind of open. Too late. Mary says that's too late. That answers a good question. Okay, so the property tax publication needs to go to the paper on the 9th. And I'm just repeating what Mary said, because I believe the owl, when we're further back, they can't hear.
So we'd be looking at Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday this week. It just depends.
Could we do Friday? That would.
What's our schedule look like? Can you bring that up?
Friday.
I don't have Eldora this week on Friday.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, we'll look at scheduling this on Friday at 9.
Okay.
At this location.
You
All
have
right.
something in your calendar at 10 o'clock as a hold, a chamber meeting.
That's for Thursday.
It's on your calendar. for Friday. Looks like it's on Friday.
I'm gonna have to go back and check. Well, yeah, but that won't start until 10.
Till 10.
That's a 4-hour meeting at the chamber.
You're
So we
going
could
Thursday and Friday are clear.
If we started at 9, we'll be out in an hour, even if,
Or if you want to start earlier, we can start earlier, Dave.
about 8:30,
Okay. Let's do
right
that.
here.
8:30 here.
Okay.
On Friday, 4th.
It's just budget discussion on the agenda as a generic topic. or
And
Yep,
possible
and action.
in action.
We need the action so that Mary and Maria can get things to the paper.
Okay, moving on then. We have a previously tabled item that we're gonna leave tabled unless we have heard something from the legislature on this, and we haven't as of yet. Nothing? Okay, I haven't either. Moving on, item 18 on our agenda this morning is public forum. This is time set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on this agenda. No action will be taken on any of these topics brought up in public forum. Who's got anything for the good of the order?
Lucas and I will probably need a special meeting as well, but I don't believe we'll be ready by Friday for a discussion on perfection and first onsite.
Okay,
We are requesting additional information from them on their, the folks that were here working on their hours, their hotels, that type. So and we're dealing with months, January through July, so it's not always easy to pull all that stuff. So it's a big task that we're asking them for. From the accounting world, I would think I could have it by this afternoon, but that's another conversation.
They have some really big holes.
They have some big holes.
Just be closed session or?
No, I don't think it needs to be closed yet at this point.
I can just.
Let's
let me know the
put it-
date. I can be present in case we need to.
I'd like probably for you to be there whenever we do that. Could we do that maybe next Tuesday? Put that kind of as a tentative date, depending on us getting this information back. And let's put also possibility of going into closed session.
Okay,
If Jordan recommends that we do that, we'll do that then. Then we have the option. We don't have to.
Tuesday at 9?
Yeah, yeah.
Go, so we're gonna just call this a budget meeting?
No, that would be a construction,
Construction, okay.
construction insurance.
yeah, construction and then
Works for me.
Okay,
that's why the Tuesdays, like I said, at 9 always seem to kind of work because it just seems like all your schedules kind of are open then.
Okay,
So if we find, we would need to publicize that by first thing Monday morning. If we find that we don't have our data by Friday morning, we'll try to get in touch with Mitch, see where he's at. We've got to move it out further.
okay, yeah, because if there's no data
If there's
from
no
them,
data, we,
there's no sense having the meeting.
exactly, we won't have it and we'll just move it out a little
Okay.
ways.
unless you're bringing coffee and donuts and whatever.
Well, I'll bring coffee. Somebody else gonna have to do the donuts. You guys gonna show up with donuts?
Why not?
Okay.
Oh. You want to bang your head against the wall too?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There's some definite head banging when we talk about insurance. You really don't want to join in this one.
Well, and this is honestly a lot more discussion on perfection and first on site than insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order? No? All right. Then we're going to move on to item number 19 on our agenda. This is adjournment. The next regular session is February 15th, 2022 at 9:05 a.m. All business to be acted upon at that session should be submitted to the county auditor and recorder's office or the board of supervisors office by Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 at 12 p.m. There being no further business to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned at 10:23. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Okay.
While the three of you are talking about your calendars.
James, did I get it shut down?
Angie at Farm Bureau
I did
wants
not.
to meet on March